Good afternoon, and thank you all for joining us for today's webinar, 5 Steps to Updating Your Hiring Process to Attract Top Candidates. My name is Jamie Lizotte, and I'm the HR Solutions Manager here at Comply Right, and I'll be both your host and presenter for today's webinar, which is brought to you by HR Direct. Now, before we get started, I do want to go over some house rules. You can go ahead and use the chat box on the left if you're having audio difficulty, and we will do our best to help you throughout the presentation. If you do have any questions pertaining to the webinar topic, please also use the chat feature to ask those questions. However, due to the structure of today's webinar, we're not going to be doing a live Q&A session, but we will be responding to those questions that get submitted after the webinar, either by email or phone. So you will be followed up to get your question answered. And lastly, I do want everybody to note that all attendees will receive an email following the webinar with a link to download and replay the presentation. The email will also include the information to obtain your HRCI credit for attending as well. So you want to be on the lookout for that email. All right. Now, again, welcome everybody, and thank you for attending today's webinar. In today's presentation, we're going to be covering the following. We're going to talk about top methods that candidates use to search for work. So how do today's candidates look for jobs? I'm also going to give you practical solutions to expand your recruiting efforts, and not only easy and efficient, but affordably as well. I'll touch on how to keep candidates engaged during the process so that you don't lose the one that could be your next superstar in your company. I'll also discuss using the job application as a screening tool, as well as some other screening tools that you can use to help identify and really select that best candidate for you. And then I'm also going to show you some easy-to-use, cost-effective solutions that will help you not only attract candidates, but also track job applicants. And that's going to be a demo towards the end of the webinar. So let's go ahead and get started. And I want to start by doing a poll. So before I jump into things, I want to gather some information from the attendees that are here with us today. So the poll question is, what is your top method to attract job candidates? Is it A, online job sites like monster.com, social media, B, social media like LinkedIn or Facebook, C, your website, D, employee referrals, E, other? And let's go ahead. I'll give everybody a few seconds here to finish up answering. But as we get some answers, let's go ahead and look. Okay, so online job sites, most 71%. So we see all of those there. But we also have some on your company website and employee referrals, which is also pretty big. But we see over half of our attendees here are using online job sites like Monster and Indeed. Okay, awesome. So let's move forward and talk about overcoming hiring hurdles. So here's the problem, and also the reason why you're probably here today attending this webinar to get more information. Hiring is really getting more and more competitive, and as candidates have more resources for finding positions, and skilled workers are in greater demand. That's the reason why it's getting more competitive. And to confirm this, in a recent poll, it was determined that 62% of small businesses are most concerned about hiring the right candidate when it comes to their hiring process. So for smaller employers to compete successfully with large businesses, they need to up their game to come across as a desirable employer. And that starts with how they handle the hiring process. And I want to expand on that a little bit. Your hiring process is really the first impression of your company. Just finding the candidate that's not enough. You want to keep the applicant interested in your company. If you have an inconsistent or an unorganized hiring process, the candidates will notice that. And you could lose a good hire to another employer because of an unfavorable impression of your business. And not only that, but just recently this month, it was reported that the number of available jobs exceeded the number of unemployed U.S. workers for the first time in 18 years. So there you have it. It's the applicants. It's their market right now. They have choices of where they want to work. So you want to make sure that you make that good impression. And at the end of April, there were 6.7 million jobs available in the U.S. and more than 6.3 million individuals counted as unemployed at the time. And that, what they mean by the unemployed means they either don't have jobs but have at least searched for one. So this is just an example of another hurdle that companies are facing and why it's important to make sure that your hiring game is top-notch. So let's go ahead and look at the steps that you can take to overcome these hurdles, or these challenges. So step one is really understanding how applicants look for jobs today. You need to understand that the top methods job seekers use to find employment so that you know where to focus your hiring efforts, right? And let's look at the most popular avenues. So just in the poll that we just did, it was showing that more than half of our attendees are actually using websites like Monster.com, Career Builder, Indeed. And we want to look at the most popular avenues job seekers use to find positions. Now, none of these are going to be a big surprise to anyone because obviously you're using them to post jobs. But I'll give you some tips on maximizing these avenues. Obviously, job listing sites like Indeed, Monster, and Career Builder are very popular. We see that our attendees here are using them. Social media is also a major channel applicants use when looking for work. And leading the pack is LinkedIn. LinkedIn is the dominant network for professional recruiting with 96% of employers surveyed by the Society for Human Resources Management, or SHRM, using it to recruit. But why is this? Well, LinkedIn's recruiting solutions actually enables companies to easily source candidates, share and advertise jobs, and create company career pages to attract and engage talent. And it's a professional site. Job seekers can search for job openings directly on LinkedIn, and they can follow companies to get the latest news and their current job openings. If you're using LinkedIn, you should focus your profile and make sure it's carefully optimized so people can find you. Also on LinkedIn, there is a way that candidates or applicants can actually apply for a job right on that LinkedIn page. So it's super easy. They don't need to go anywhere else to submit an application. But you don't want to discount any other social media sites, though. If your company has a Facebook page, for example, that is a great way, and it's also inexpensive to get the word out that you're hiring as well. And then, of course, there's word of mouth and getting referrals from family and friends. You want to let your staff know that you're hiring and tell them to send any interested and qualified applicants your way as well. All right, as we just talked about how applicants look for jobs, we know that the most popular way is through internet, so your website is a very important step in the hiring process. It's really the first impression of your company that your company makes on job seekers, I should say. Your website should appeal to the type of people that you want to recruit especially. And you want to make sure that your site looks professional and current. You don't want to have any broken links or missing pages. You want to make sure it's up to date and current. For example, your About Us page should tell your company's story. You want job seekers to be able to read about who you are, what you do, and how your company does it. And this is also a great place to brag a little about your successes as a company, because we all know that an applicant or candidate, when they're looking for a job, they want to work for a company that does well. That's a great company. And, you know, everybody wants to work for that successful company. So there's your chance to brag about it. Now, on your career page, you can tout the benefits of working for your company. That's another thing. Applicants want to go where they're going to get the best benefits. Incorporate quotes from current staff talking about their positive experiences working at the company. Show pictures of company events. And that's a great page to display the culture of your company. What is it like to work there? Show how fun it is. Because you want to show your potential applicants, employees, enjoy working there, and that it's a fun place to work at the same time. And you could also even set up email alerts for people who want to know about new opportunities first. It's best to also list all your job descriptions of positions that you regularly hire for or that you have open. And most of all, if a candidate has a relevant experience, you want to also tell them to apply even if there's not a job listed that they're looking for. Because you always should have your eyes open for good talent. And you should always be accepting applications no matter what, because you never know when you could bring them in for a position to open. And finally, it's also essential that you have a way for applicants to apply online. They should be able to easily fill out a job application and attach a cover letter or a resume to get that to you. Okay. But you don't want to completely move away from the traditional methods and using online channels. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't put up help wanted signs or have paper applications on hand, as I should say, if you work in that type of business. So you may be the type of business where you have a lot of applicants just walking by and coming in and asking if you're hiring. If so, then make sure you have those applications handy that they can fill out right then and there, and you can take their information. And this is especially true if you hire a lot of entry-level or shift workers. A lot of students, for example, they still walk door to door looking for businesses and asking for applications, like I just mentioned. So if you have people that regularly visit your business, it's a good idea to let them know you're hiring and have applications available in case you're asked for one. You don't want to look unprofessional and lose out on potential hires because an employee in your office is running around trying to find an application for that person to fill out. Another thing I recommend is to have an email version of your application readily available. If you get a phone or email inquiry, then you'd be able to simply just ask for the candidate's email and then send them an application via the internet. All right, now speaking of job applications, we're going to move on to step 2. And the next step is using the job application legally and effectively. The right job application serves many purposes. It fulfills legal commitments. It also is a great screening tool, as I mentioned in the beginning, and it can also help protect your business from discrimination claims. Now, let's take a moment to discuss the importance of the job application. You might be thinking that, okay, if a candidate hands me a resume, that's sufficient enough. But technically they aren't. They're really not gathering all the information and pertinent information, important information that a job application can. So it's recommended to have every candidate complete a job application, even if you've already received a resume. And another reason why, besides gathering all that information, because resumes aren't standardized. Applications, like I mentioned, they really help you gather the same information from all applicants, as well as more information than just your resume. And that consistent approach really does go a long way toward protecting you from claims of discrimination. You're actually requiring the exact same information from every candidate, and it levels the playing field across the board for all those that are applying for the same position. And job applications do also include important legal disclosures like equal employment opportunity and at-will employment. So it's important that you display this information to the applicants as they're applying to work at your company. So what should you look for in a job app? Well, first, you want to make sure that your employment application asks probing job-related questions like skills, education, employment history, and also reasons for leaving their previous positions. It should also include language that you're an equal employment opportunity. I just mentioned that on the other slide. And it should include the EEOC approved question about the applicant's ability to perform the job. So this is basically asking, like, it could be an attendance question, like, are you able to meet all the hours of employment, working full-time, or are you able to work without an accommodation, or things like that? And those have to be worded very specifically, so it's important that you have that language. And again, having that language on your job application can help you avoid a hiring discrimination dispute. Now, your employment application should also feature the non-harassment clause. It should also reinforce that employment is at will, which means the relationship is voluntary and subject to termination by you or the employee at any time. So there's no contract saying it's going to last this long or whatever. It also should establish an expiration date so that the candidate knows the application won't be held indefinitely. So this means we'll hold it for so long, and then you are able to discard it after that, or the applicant has to apply again in order to be considered for a position. It should also authorize you to check references, and this is a crucial step in hiring the right person. We're going to go over this a little bit later, but in order to make sure you're going to get the candidate, you're going to need references from every candidate, and you're going to need permission to contact those references as well. And a resume doesn't always give you all that information or give you actually written consent to contact them. An application does. And finally, and most importantly, your application must comply with all federal and state laws. And those laws are changing pretty often now, especially with the laws like ban the box, where you can't ask a criminal history question, depending on which state you're located in, or the salary history ban, where you can't ask the previous salary in their current job or in their previous jobs and things like that. So it's very important that you understand the questions you can and cannot ask, and make sure that your job application is up to date. So I'm going to quickly go over some state requirements for job apps. I just mentioned that because this could get very detailed, and to be honest, there's still a lot more I want to cover in this webinar, and covering state information and job applications could actually be its own webinar itself. But when it comes to job applications, you never want to rely on a generic one-size-fits-all application. The kind that are readily available online on HR forms websites, those are pretty generic applications. I've seen many of these generic applications that ask, are you a U.S. citizen? Well, guess what? That's actually an illegal question and makes it appear you're only interested in hiring U.S. citizens. The correct way to phrase that question when you're asking it in an interview or on an application is, are you legally eligible to work in the United States? So, on a lot of the applications that you find on HR websites online and stuff, they may be free, it may just be a template. They don't necessarily ask it the proper way. And unless you're buying a job application from a company that you know is updating it, that has employment attorneys, making sure that each application is state specific, then you're not going to be sure if you're asking the wrong questions or even illegal questions that could put your company in hot water even before an applicant's working for you. So you want to watch out for that. States also have very specific requirements about employment applications. For example, more than 30 states and many cities prohibit you from asking about criminal history on the form. This is commonly known as ban the box, like I mentioned earlier. And this really is to help create more equality between all individuals applying for a job, especially those with criminal histories. A quick side note, though, this doesn't mean that you can't do background checks on your applicants. What it means is that you simply have to wait until later in the hiring process to ask about criminal history. It could be until after you've given a firm offer or they've accepted, things like that. You just have to look at your state-specific laws. And we are going to discuss background checks later in the presentation, so you'll be able to get a firmer understanding. And recently, states and cities have also started banning employers from asking about salary history, the salary history ban that I just mentioned earlier too, meaning it can't be on the job application or discussed in an interview. And this effort of the salary history ban is to equalize pay between men and women so that employers don't base the current salary on what the employee used to make, which can perpetuate past discrimination when women have been paid less than men for doing the same work. So those are a lot of laws that have changed. We've seen quite a few states this year actually adopt the salary history ban. So that's going to start increasing as the year goes by and continue, just like the ban the box. A lot of states jumped on board, and now we have more than 30 in multiple cities. But the bottom line here really is that you need to make sure that you're using an application that is 100% compliant with both federal and state laws. Or you could get yourself in hot water even with an applicant. Now again, this is somebody that doesn't work for you, but you don't want to have yourself in hot water before you have somebody even working for your company. So let's talk about using the job application after applicants submit them as a screening tool. Now, the job application can be a great screening tool. And again, you're getting the same information from each candidate, so it helps keep your process consistent. When it comes to screening the job application, some things that you want to look for are you obviously want to review their previous employment, but be particularly mindful of the reasons given for leaving their previous job. This can definitely tell you a lot. And if you feel like you're still unsure about why they've left a job or anything, you may want to delve deeper into these reasons during the interview with the applicant. You also want to note the length of time at previous jobs. Is the candidate a job hopper? You want to look for any unexplained gaps in employment. Again, you may want to ask about this in the interview. They may have a valid reason for it. They could have been caring for an elderly relative or their parents or something. Military is another one. Overall, really, you want to consider whether the candidate has job stability and look to see who the candidate uses for references. It's really a good sign if the applicant lists past managers rather than friends or coworkers. And again, though the application is just one screening tool, I'm going to touch on others a little bit later in the presentation. Let's move on to step 3, keep candidates informed and interested. And now we're in the hiring process. So let's say that you've done some of the things I've suggested today. You've updated and optimized your LinkedIn profile. You marketed the available position on your social media sites. Your employees know about the open job, and they're telling their friends and family, and you've gotten interest from the career page on your website. Now you have a pool of strong candidates, you have completed job applications, and you're in the thick of interviewing process, right? Well, obviously, it's going to take some time to go through it all. However, while you're going through that part of the process, you also want to make sure your candidates know that you haven't forgotten about them. You want to make sure that you keep them informed of what's going on and make sure that they're impressed with that. Like, wow, they're calling me and letting me know exactly what's going on. I'm not sitting there wondering when they're going to call me or how long it's going to take to finish up the process. Do that while you're making the decision, so they're not sitting there wondering, and you know they're probably not, your company's probably not the only company they're interviewing with either. So you want your company to be at the forefront of their mind. And just remember, the hiring process is the first impression your company is making to potential employees. So you want that to be a good impression. Okay, now before we move into communicating efficiently, I want to actually do another poll question and ask, do you currently notify candidates who don't qualify for positions? Yes, we notify all candidates, only some candidates, or no, we don't notify candidates at all. We do not notify candidates. So they would only get notified if they've received a position. No, we do not notify candidates. Okay, so over half of all of our attendees are not currently notifying candidates. Some do respond to some, and then yes, we notify all candidates. We have about 20%. Okay, so let's talk about seeing that we have over half not notifying candidates, why it's so important to have efficient communication with all of your candidates, whether they're good for the position or not. During the interview process, you should make sure to explain to your candidates the notification process that your company follows during the interview process, meaning how they'll be notified once the interview has commenced, as well as what the next steps are. During the interview process, you can go through what type of process it is. You can let them know what other steps there are. You should first let the candidate know your general timeline for following up. Is it after all your interviews have been completed or within a few days of a candidate's interview? You should also share your general timeline of when you're looking to fill the position, so they have that date in mind as well. And next, you want to inform them how you're going to communicate with them moving forward. Will it be by phone, email, or even text? Because text is becoming a very popular way to engage with candidates nowadays. And that's a great way to stay in touch if it works for your company. And lastly, you want to also make sure you share with them any next steps in the interviewing process. For example, are there second or any other interviews that need to happen with other individuals in the company? Is there pre-employment testing that needs to occur, or background screening or drug testing? And by sharing this information with the candidate, it'll make them more aware of your process and what to expect moving forward, versus them leaving your office and wondering, okay, what now? And efficient communication can be very effective with your candidates, and it can also go a very long way. This is very important because you definitely don't want to leave your candidates hanging or even think that they're out of the running. If they don't receive a call for the next 5 days or something, they may think, oh, I probably didn't get the job, and now they're moving on to the next job, or a company offers it to them, but you were almost 2 days late offering it to them, and now you lost that great star candidate, right? This can look very unprofessional to the candidate and hurt your company from getting other candidates to apply to your company in the future. Because word of mouth goes a long way, and when it comes to applying for jobs, most candidates do their research and ask around And if a candidate shares a bad experience with a potential, that could be a red flag that stops them from moving forward. Professional communication can also keep a candidate interested and potentially not accept another job without at least talking to you first, giving you the benefit of the doubt. So in this instance, it actually works both ways. And it could mean the difference of having that star candidate accept an offer from your company or not. So again, to reiterate, while you're in the interview process, you want to keep the candidates informed of where you are in the process and what the next steps are. If there's a second round of interviews for top applicants, for example, candidates should know that, and they should know the timing of that. And then there should be a standard way to inform them and schedule the follow-up. And remember, you always want your company to look professional and efficient. This is your first impression to the individual. And just think, the best candidates might be contacted by multiple companies. You want them to be excited about the opportunity to work with your company. So you want to stay in touch with them, and you want to keep them interested. And to continue on with efficient communication, it is also very essential that you make your offer and send rejections as quickly as possible. Because the faster you respond to your applicants, the more likely you'll get your top choice. And remember, hiring should be a top priority when you are going through the process. You want to get those positions filled as soon as possible, and keeping candidates waiting can result in them taking other job offers. Lastly, you should also communicate to all applicants that applied to the position that it has been filled, even the ones that didn't get it. Advising non-hires of your decision eliminates questions and confusion, and it does keep the door open to consider qualified candidates in the future. They may not have been the star employee that you're looking to hire today, but they could have been right under the star employee that if you had more positions, you would have taken them. So you could also keep that application in the future. If you communicate with them to let them know, listen, I only had one position, you were great, there was something else we're looking for, but we want to keep your application on hand in case we have something open up in the near future. And they'll be on the same page as you and say, yeah, that's great, I would love for you to do that. And at least they have that impression saying that, wow, that was great, they stayed in touch with me, I know where we're at, and they may even call you back if they're still looking in a few months. So it leaves a good impression of your company that you made the effort to let the applicants know of your decision. They're not just sitting around waiting to be contacted by you, and if so, they can just continue on with their search and accept another job. All right, so now on to step 4, which is screening candidates carefully and thoroughly. And we already discussed using the job application as a screening tool, but let's look at some other options that can help you screen even further, as well as assist you in helping you, make the best hiring decision. So let's start with references. Personally, I think too many companies underestimate the importance of references, and I'm sure that we can all agree today that trying to get a hold of individuals on the phone is not as easy as it used to be. But it is still very important that you get feedback about the applicant. So to verify information and get more insight into candidates, best practices are to always ask for at least 3 references from former employers. You will have some people that will list friends or coworkers, at least somebody that you can talk to that supervised them, that can give you information from a supervision level to see how they were as an employee. So it's always best to get a reference from the person who supervised the job candidate at his or her past job. That person will actually know more than the HR department and may be more willing to talk. Now, when it comes to contacting references, you can decide to make a phone call to speak with them directly, or even use a reference form that you email them so they can fill it out at their convenience. However, if you do send a reference form, a prior phone call is still good to do so that the individual will know to expect the email. But you have to remember, when you're collecting information from a reference, any questions that you ask about a job candidate must be related directly to the job duties that they're applying for or had in their previous or current position, their performance in a previous job, or the information the candidate provided on the application, or details you learned during the interview process. So it all has to be related. You can't just ask random questions out there. But you do want to try to ask open-ended questions like, what type of work ethic does the applicant have? To get the reference talking. You don't want to typically ask a lot of yes or no questions, because that's all you're going to get. And if the reference won't answer this type of question, you can still get useful information by asking an objective yes or no question, such as, is he or she eligible for rehire by your company? Or did he or she have any problems with absenteeism or lateness? Even simple yes or no answers can sometimes give you enough insight into a candidate, because a simple no to rehire should at least raise a red flag for you when you're considering to hire an applicant. Now, a lot of reference calls, even to HR companies, that's the most that they'll say, are you eligible for rehire? And they'll say yes or no. They really don't go into the details, and that's for protection of the company. But if you start with the open-ended questions and you can get more details on the applicant, then that's better, and they're willing to give that to you, go for those open-ended questions. But if not, there are ways to rephrase them so you can get the yes or no question answered and still get the pertinent information to make that decision. All right, and I have one more poll I'd like to do before we move into the latter part of our presentation today, and it's, does your company use social media to screen candidates? Never, sometimes, or always. And I'm very interested to see the results here and see what everybody poses. So they said never, 58%. That's a good answer. That's what I was hoping to see. Sometimes and always. Okay. So let's talk about another pre-employment another tool. Another screening tool is pre-employment testing. Depending on the job position and its role in your business, you may want to conduct some pre-employment tests that will help you narrow your choice of candidates. These different types of pre-employment tests can typically include skills tests, which will help you ensure employees are well-rounded in basic skills like math and proofreading. The skills tests actually measure specific job-related skills, and they can also help determine if an applicant has the right abilities for the job they're applying for. And when it comes to skills tests, you want to be sure to select the appropriate skill test for the type of position for which you're hiring. For example, if you're hiring an administrative assistant, conduct a clerical skills test. Something they will need in order to be successful in the position. If you're hiring a sales representative, administer a sales skills test. That was a mouthful there. Employers can also use integrity tests when hiring workers, and those are for tests for employees who will be interacting with customers or handling money. Integrity tests do help you determine if applicants can be trusted or if they're likely to steal merchandise or money, disobey company policy, or display aggressive behavior. And lastly, there are also personality tests. Even the most talented employee will not thrive if the job is not a good fit for his or her personality. And personality tests that are job-tailored can even help measure traits like dependability, assertiveness, creativity, and leadership. But one thing to remember when you're using pre-employment tests as a screening tool, you want to make sure to be consistent among your applicants. Again, consistency is key. And you want to make sure each applicant applying for the same position is given the same test. This can protect your company against possible discrimination again, but it can also help level the playing field among the candidates and, again, assist you in making the best hiring decision to make sure you're choosing that star candidate. All right, and now we get to what I call the black and white screening part of the process. The reason why is because the next two screening processes are either a pass or fail. So let's start with background checks. Now, depending on the position, you may want to conduct a background check, and this is particularly a wise move to do so. If the employee is going to be driving on the job, if they'll be handling money, doing your company's bookkeeping, working with sensitive data such as customer financials, or working on your company's computers and data, handling a lot of that sensitive information. Now, sometimes background checking companies will confirm information the job applicants provide on their resume and employment application, such as previous employment, job titles, hiring and termination dates, and education or credentials. They may also do a search to confirm the person's social security number, as well as other critical information, such as past workers' compensation claims, criminal records, motor vehicle records, bankruptcy, and credit history. But the most important thing about background checks is that you want to make sure you comply with federal and state regulations. And I did mention this a little bit earlier. Only use a qualified background checking company that's familiar with the latest legal requirements, especially for your state. Also, when you're working with a third-party company, you want to make sure that you're aware that you're required under federal law to obtain written consent from the job applicant. And make sure that you also understand your federal, state, and local laws. Again, I can't push that enough because some states are specific about when it's legal during the hiring process to even conduct a background check. And then, of course, there's also drug screening. And this can help protect your business from hiring an employee with a substance abuse problem. These types of problems have been shown to cause higher absenteeism and increased healthcare costs. Federal law does prohibit asking about job applicants' health before a job offer is made. So you really can only conduct a drug screening after this step. So that's only after you've made an offer to the applicant. And state and local laws about pre-employment drug and alcohol screening vary widely. So again, you want to make sure you know your state and local laws. However, I will state that most states require drug tests to be done by a state-certified laboratory, so you need to make sure that's how your company conducts them. And you must also put your drug and alcohol testing policies in writing and, again, obtain consent from job applicants before conducting these tests. Now, screening applicants is one of the most important aspects of the hiring process, but I'm going to reiterate it one more time. You need to always make sure to know your federal, state, and local laws regarding screening because you don't want to get your company in hot water even before you've hired that applicant, and that's very important. All right, so now I want to show you some practical, inexpensive solutions that will help you with your hiring process. These cloud-based web apps that I'm about to show you will help you with the following: reaching more candidates legally and effectively, keep candidates engaged during the evaluation period, and give you a way, an easy way, I should say, to extend job offers and rejections. And these cover the 4 steps that we just went over. The web app I'm going to show you now are HR Direct's newest product, Smart Apps, and I'm going to start with the Job Application Smart App. So let's go ahead and take a look. And all right. So we're on job applications here. And this online tool with job applications will give you an electronic job application that complies with all federal and state laws. You'll never have to worry about being out of compliance. And with the job application app, you'll be able to post a link to your job application on your website. So it could be your company intranet that will reach all your current employees to let them know you have an open position within the company, and also on your outside company website so that outside applicants can apply. You can also put it on your LinkedIn profile and even your online job ads on sites like Monster or Indeed. You can also email the application directly to applicants. Plus, it allows you to print as many paper copies as needed. But the best thing of all, it's only $60. So I'm going to quickly walk you through this application. When you receive the application, you'll just walk through these steps, a brief explanation of what the job app is. You'll have a chance to put in some of your information here. You can select the state you're in. I'm going to go ahead and select Florida, and then I click I understand. Updating my company information will also update this information in my profile. So now it's selected Florida for me. Now you do have the opportunity to change this to any state. Let's go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and stick with Florida here. And then it's going to go ahead and create the job app for you. So what's going to happen now is it's basically just creating a state-specific job application. So it's going through and pulling in all the questions that I can ask on a Florida job as a company in Florida on a Florida state job application. And it says your attorney-approved job application has been created. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. We're going to click My Application up at the top tab. And now it's going to populate all our questions. So here, basically, you can edit any of your company information up at the top by clicking that. I'm going to cancel. I'm not going to do that. If you did want to go ahead and change your state, you also have the opportunity to do that here. And as you can see, each of these questions that are on the job application have a show or no show. Now, if you see the little lock there, that means you can't do anything. That means it's always going to show. You can't remove it. But there are questions here like contact information that you do have the opportunity to say, okay, you know what, I don't want that on my job application, so I can hide it. So you have the opportunity to hide any non-required questions. I'm just going to cancel this so we can go ahead and prove and then show how how you can preview your applications. So you can preview an online application, and this is exactly how it would look if someone were to come and fill out your job application online. They would see it just like this. This is where they can type all the information in, and then they would be able to complete it, and it would actually go to your site. So that is one way. And the other way is you can preview a print-ready application. So again, this is just not going to have the fields that you can actually fill in online. This would be just something for you to print and keep in your front office. So those are the way to preview. Now let's look at the Applicants tab. And on the Applicants tab, this is where you can actually get a link to put your job application on social media, your company intranet, as well as your public website. So you'd go to Share Job Application, click Get Link, and then you type it, and then you'd see it in here. Once you copy this URL, that's exactly what that URL is, what you would put on your LinkedIn, like that says Apply Here, and that link is where the individual would go. They would see the exact same page I just showed you on the online job application. And now you could also email a job application. So send email. This is where you can send an email to an applicant. And I'm going to send one here so you can see exactly how it works. And in the subject line, this is all editable. So you could put apply with us now. You can change this to anything you want. Same thing as the hello, as the message. All of the content in the subject and the message is easily changeable. So you can edit that any way you'd like, and then once you're ready, just go ahead and send it over. So it says an email with your link to your online application has been successfully sent to the email address you put in there. And now I'm actually going to pull this up, and we're going to see this application that's come through. It may not come right away, but we'll see it come through. I actually have to log out of here so I can log in as the applicant. Let me sign out really quickly and log back in to see what we have here. That email should be coming in. I think it's over there. Nope. It might have gone just because that's not a normal place. Nope, it's not in there. You should be getting it here. Either way, your let me try to send it to make sure I sent it to the right address. Try to send it one more time. I go to Applicants, Share Job Application, Send Email. Sometimes I don't. There we go. I know that's there. So we know that's there. Okay, well, we'll check back. Either way, basically what would happen is the applicant would receive an email, and they would have a link in the email that they would be able to click, and it would bring them directly to this application, this online application. And they would be able to fill out this online application. Let me just go ahead and all the asterisks that you see here are exactly what they need to fill out. So that's the minimum information that they'd have to enter in order to complete the application. I'm going to enter some information here. position apply for, I'm just going to put sales. And the other great thing about this is that on the form, as the applicant is filling out information, there's extra room. So if they had multiple positions they wanted to enter, they could actually just click add another job, and they continually add as many jobs as they want to put in their application, which doesn't stop them. And that's the same thing for skills and qualifications. They can add more information as well as for references. So it only shows one, but there's room for as many, up to I think up to 3 or 4. So they can add those there. And then at the end, we also have the applicant statement and signature. Again, this application is attorney written and approved. So it may have disclaimers depending on the state that you're in. And we also require that they have a signature here. So we want to make sure that they're filling this out and they know that this is held by whatever they are filling out. Like everything that they say is basically, they're saying everything is true that I'm filling out on this application. And there's also an area where they can upload a cover letter, their resume, any other information that they may want to add aside from the application. And then they would go ahead and click complete and see how it shows me I didn't put enough information. And I put the dashes in there, so that's not going to work. There we go. And now I can complete the application. So I'm going to confirm. And now it shows me, and so see, now it's showing in my email that I got the application. Let me log out so you can see that. I got the application from the company, and now I can complete the job application. It's going to bring me to the same page. And just like I completed that other application, if I were to complete this application, this is exactly what would have showed up in the inbox, I should say. I'll show you exactly the email that you get as an admin when you're looking at the job, when you receive job applications. There is an email that you get to let you know that you have a new application sitting. So as we can see right here, the application just came in from the applicant, Leela Zott, and it's showing that it's active, and it's also marked new. And then here, if you click on it, it's going to allow you to see the application here as a whole. And this is also a place where you can view any of the files that the applicant had uploaded, whether it's the cover letter, the resume. And also you can mark it as a rejected application, a withdrawn application, or you've hired that employee, that applicant, I should say. And lastly, the last thing I want to show you here for the job application app is in the resources section. So in the resources section, all of these cards, again, are written and approved by our in-house attorneys. And it shows the purpose of the app, how to use the app, some record-keeping requirements, and how long you need to keep job applications for. Tips for reviewing completed applications. So a lot of things that I just went over today and using the job application as a screening tool. And lastly, this is also another area where you can print out print-ready applications, so you can have them at the front desk for your administrative assistant to hand out if anybody walks in looking to apply for the job. All right, so now I'm going to bring you back to the screen, and we are now going to talk about another tool that's in development right now. Will actually help you get the best candidate for the job, and that's the Applicant Tracking Smart App. This is slated to be released later this year, and this online solution really makes it easy for you and your hiring managers to track and collaborate on all the stages of hiring, like your interviews, your pre-employment testing, background checks, drug testing, or skip those stages that don't fit your business all the way through to the employee's first day on the job. The app also helps you stay in touch with the applicants throughout the process. And we did talk about communicating efficiently and how important that is. And again, the best part is it's only $60. Now, the applicant tracking app, unlike the job application app, allows you to create open positions for which you're hiring. This screen that you see or the slide I should say you see on screen shows 4 open positions plus the general consideration position, which is really the default position that applicants will fall under if you don't have any positions created. So if you're currently not hiring but you're still accepting applications, which I think a lot of companies do, all the applicants will fall under general consideration until you create a position. And when this app is used with the Job Application Smart App, all information is actually seamlessly transferred for the best experience. So any job applications that an applicant finishes will basically move over from job applications. It will stay there, but it'll also move over to the applicant tracking app so that you can see it in both areas and you can actually efficiently track that application now. But both apps can also operate as a standalone solution, and all information can be manually entered very easily. So that's the best part. Now, from this next screen, you can see who's responsible for hiring and how long the position has been open. So it allows you to enter a hiring manager as well as shows you the date that the position was opened. And on the same screen, the last 4 columns of the grid give you a quick overview of the number of new applicants that you have for each position, along with how many are in process and where they are, whether they're in process, withdrawn, or rejected. Now, let's move on to talk about the applicants, because that's what you're tracking here, right? The Applicants tab will actually list all applicants that have filled out and sent in an application. So basically, these are kind of the job applications that if you have the job application app, that would basically fall over from that app. And then here, you can also see the position they applied for, what stage the applicant is in, and who is responsible for the hiring. Again, the hiring manager. And to view an applicant's information further, all you'd have to do is click on the applicant's name, and then a window would open. It will slide out from the right, displaying the applicant's contact information and their activity. This is where you would be able to move the candidate on to the next hiring stage, whichever they're at. Now, I want to take a closer look at what the information is in the activity section. This area really highlights which stage the applicant is currently in and also displays the candidate's hiring history. In this example, Lily is in the reference check stage and successfully completed pre-employment testing, as you can see. Now, another great feature is, and I want to point out on this screen, is that you're able to see how your coworkers rated this candidate. And this is one of the best features of the app, because during the hiring process, you end up with a lot of criteria to assess each candidate, and that can sometimes create a confusing jumble of pluses and minuses. But using a 5-star rating system, which this app allows, makes it simple for you and your managers to rate their overall perceptions using a simplified and intuitive scale. So as you can see here, Wyatt, employee in the company, rated this applicant with 4 stars, and Ruby Woo rated them as 5 stars. So there you have something to go against when you're looking at each candidate. And lastly, from here, you can also access the candidate's job application and any other files that they may have attached. What's nice about all of this is that you're able to track important dates, communicate directly with the applicant, keeping them informed of your process, again, which I mentioned in step 3 of communicate efficiently, and that's very important, and quickly and easily hire the applicant by changing their status to hired. Again, the app will be released later this year, so you want to make sure to keep an eye out for it. Now, you just heard a bit, quite a bit of information, I should say, about finding the best candidate. And I even was able to show you firsthand how 2 Smart App solutions by HR Direct can help you do just that, the job application app and the applicant tracking app. But at HR Direct Smart Apps, we do also offer many other titles to help with everyday HR tasks, from attendance tracking to time off requests and employee discipline management, and I-9 and W-4. So once you've sent out that job application and you've tracked them through the hiring process, the next step is to have them on board correctly. So for more information on Smart Apps, please visit hrdirectapps.com or call 1-800-999-9111 and speak to a customer service representative. And that does conclude today's webinar. But again, I do want to thank all the attendees for joining in. I hope this information was great and very helpful to you, and that you'll go back and upgrade your hiring process to help you get that 5-star candidate. And don't forget, everyone attending will receive an email containing the slides from the presentation along with the information for your HRCI credits. So I want to say thank you for attending again. Have a wonderful afternoon, and until next time, happy hiring.